What's going on, people? We're back with Lost Season 3, Episode 2, The Glass Ballerina. Like I said, we're still pretty much in the setup point of the season, so we're going to take this nice and brief. We're coming back with weapons right after this, and that's going to kind of be our big jam-packed, event-filled episode of the weekend. But for now, like I said, pretty much just continuing off of last week. We're incorporating in more of the storylines that we left off with last season. This time, we're bringing back Sayid, Jin, and Sun, and them on the boat and kind of their quest to find Jack and the others. Except by this point, Sayid's already figured out. He's like, look, they haven't showed up yet. They've definitely been captured. Something bad has happened. So naturally, what does that lead to? Of course, more domestic issues with Jin and Sun. I'm like, oh, we're still doing this. Awesome. Great. Jin's still being an asshole, overprotective husband. And it's like, you get why, because it's like, oh, Sun's pregnant. So like there's more of an added reason for that. But also at the same time, it's like, dude, we've been through this like a couple times now. This is getting old. Can we please start to move past this? You know? And that's more and more because like I said, season 3 was the season where I like basically locked in and binged the rest of the show. So like there's not as much that I remember from this point going forward, because this is the stuff that like I only watched once. And this is the stuff that I was like trying to get past, because I'm like, oh, this is kind of getting repetitive. Like, what are we doing here? But there are still some good moments in this episode for sure. The Sun and Jin flashbacks at this point, like I said, the flashbacks I would not say are necessarily adding anything new to the characters here, but there are still some interesting stuff, namely the biggest thing being that Sun's dad famously caught her cheating, and this all ties in with the opening scene of the episode, which is where Sun, as a little girl, in order to avoid the responsibility of breaking a prize, Glass Ballerina, hence the title of the episode, shifted the blame onto the maid, forcing her dad to fire the maid. But there's this interesting little moment where he's like, listen, he's like, if you don't cop forward to this, then I'll be forced to fire the maid. Are you willing to basically sacrifice someone else for yourself, essentially, you know, kind of setting us up for ultimately the act that Sun will unintentionally commit in terms of, you know, the next stage in the war with the others. So what did you think of the Glass Ballerina?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a crux of the show, because we have so many characters. Like I'm thinking about, so like I'm thinking of different shows, like how many characters are there. But this one is like it's like Game of Thrones, but they're all on one island. Game of Thrones, at least, like there's like 7 different plots happening at once, so it feels like cohesive. Here, it's like some characters do end up being one note because you have so many and you can't develop them all to the same level. Like, you know, you take Jack and Sawyer, Kate, like they're like Locke as well. They're fairly developed, and then, you know, like Michael became one note towards the end of 2, and Jin and Sun, as you said, they're kind of running in circles of this domestic disputes. Jin being overprotective, and yeah, and as you said, the flashbacks are kind of okay. We kind of knew this, and now we're seeing it again. So it's kind of okay. Can we just get to the island and progress that? And even on the island, it's a bit kind of stalling until we recap everything that all the fallout of the last season. Like we still haven't seen what happened to Locke and those. We'll get that in the next episode, obviously, but it's still like easing us in, I guess. But we do get the big catalyst towards the end that will presumably kick off the big conflict of the season.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest difference between the opening couple of episodes of season 2 versus this season is that season 2 introduced the hatch, like the inside of the hatch, like this whole new device that we had not seen. Like we had the buildup of the outside of the hatch in season 1, but because we never saw the inside of it, we had no clue what to expect. And that introduced this whole new element that was able to like carry us through some of those filler setup episodes. And then you had this whole new cast of characters that came in. Here, it's like, okay, we had the big reveal of the others last week, but now this time it's like, oh, okay, so we're building up towards a war. Okay. But like, I don't know. I feel like we're not necessarily getting anything new, because I feel like rather than like focus on some of the new characters, like if this were like season 2, we would be spending all of our time with the others and entirely from their perspective rather than our set of characters, you know, because that I feel like would be so much more interesting and add this whole new different perspective onto the island, because we've been spending so much time with our main group of survivors that it would be interesting to see this other perspective from this group that's been living here for so long. And you know, like Ben tells Jack in at the end of this episode, when he finally tells him his real name, he's like, yeah, I've lived my entire life on this island. Wouldn't that be so interesting to see what living their entire life on this island would be like.
He says one more thing, and I think he says it both to Jack and the audience. Patience, Jack, patience. So
Yeah,
it,
yeah. Well, that's ultimately the issue here is rather than do that, which I think would be much more interesting, we instead do this thing of where it's like, oh, we're just going to once again keep it from the perspective of our characters. We're going to keep everything shrouded in mystery until the absolute last possible minute. And when we do answer it, we're going to give you in these vague, like annoying half answers. And that it's a trope that again it made Lost very successful at the time that it was on, but this is the point where I'm like, okay, we're kind of getting sick of it. Can we get the ball rolling here, please? And then meanwhile, of course, we have Sawyer and Kate are once again literally just tasked with bullshit tasks. It's like, hey, you guys are gonna break up rocks, and if you talk, there's gonna be trouble. And so naturally, because it's Sawyer, it's like,
it's like yes, boss.
yeah,
I love that part.
yeah, naturally because it's Sawyer, of course, he's gonna start kicking up shit and causing
Yeah.
issues. It's like, gee, who could have possibly seen that one coming? And then it just leads to a point where he goes and makes out with Kate, and then Uncle Jack from Breaking Bad comes up and shocks him. And I'm like,
Oh
damn,
yeah. Oh, that's Uncle Jack
yes.
from the last season.
Yes,
Like
from the
those
last
few
season.
episodes.
Yes,
Yeah.
Michael Bowen. Yeah, and then Tom also. We don't get any more fun moments with Sawyer and him, but we do get a brief moment of interaction between Kate and Alex, where Alex asks Kate, he's like, "Hey, the kid that was in the cage with Sawyer, do you know where he is?" And Kate's like, "What? What are you talking about?" And it's like, "Wow, really? We're throwing in domestic teen drama onto this island too, as if we didn't have enough of that already to begin with." Great. You're starting to understand why I'm not the biggest fan of season 3.
Yeah, and I'm watching this. I'm like, okay. I'm trusting the writing team that this will go somewhere. It might just take a little while
Yeah.
to get there. So
Don't get me wrong. The payoff for season 3 is worth it for sure. But the first couple episodes of season 3 are rough. I was like, oh man, this is even worse than I remember.
but yeah, I guess you always have in many great works you have those moments of like, okay, we have to like establish certain things, and in this case they have to get it to 24 episodes. Like they could definitely probably squish this in, even
Yeah.
this part into one
Yeah.
episode.
I
Yeah,
would
the
say
last two.
these first like 4 or 5 episodes they could have easily squeezed into one episode if I'm being honest. But like I said, even like I said, there are still some good revelations to be had. The biggest payoff, obviously, is the fact of, when the others discover that, because famously, obviously, the others knew that they were going to find the fake village and knew that they were going to find it empty. But then Paula Malcolmson, famously, Katniss's mom from the Hunger Games movies and also famously portrayed Trixie in Deadwood, comes in and she's like, after this one other brief moment with Juliet and Ben, once again continuing their little ire that they have with each other, and they're like, Ben's like, "Oh, you never brought me grilled cheese." I'm like, "Oh my god!" Like they're just really rubbing salt and lemon juice in the wound there. But Paula Malcolmson comes in. I don't remember her name because she's fun fact she's only in this one episode. But she comes in and he's like, "Yeah, they have a boat," and he's like, "How?" Because of course the others famously were not accounting for Desmond because by the time Desmond came back in, it was too late. They had already set their plan in motion, so it was too late for Michael to warn them about it. So they're like, okay, we need that boat, presumably because they gave up their only boat for Michael and Walt to leave. So that kind of worked out in their favor. And I'm like, that's weird. You would have thought that, you would have thought about that they would have known about that. But that also means that they just didn't know that Desmond was was inside the hatch that whole time, which is a little interesting. But so they send Paula Malcolmson and a squad of others to get the boat. Sayid is setting up the beach for an ambush. He's like, look, I know they've been captured. We're going to set up here. We're going to wait for them to come in. I'm going to ambush them. I'm going to capture 2 of them, and I'm going to kill the rest. And Sun's like, and Sun, of course, is full of questions. It's like, how are you going to, it was like, why 2? And he's like, one to make the other one talk.
Like you're one guy, like Sayid. Like I know you were in the army, but there's like a lot of them.
Never
What do you expect to do?
Never underestimate Sayid. I mean, obviously the others also do have some element as well of how skilled he is. There's a reason why they didn't want him with the group that they were going to capture. There's a reason why they were basically hoping that he would go on a wild goose chase. Like they know what Sayid's capable of skills wise. They also obviously know about what he did to Ben when he was being held captive. So I'm like, yeah, they know what they're doing there.
Yeah, but then even Sawyer says that, oh, like, okay, these guys haven't really seen action. Like, I could probably take them. So
right,
it's like slipping through the cracks that, okay, these guys aren't like superhuman. Like, there's a lot of them. Like, they know the island clearly, but they're just people at this point. So
the advantage comes from the fact that they know the island better than our group of survivors. But now that we've actually like spent time with them, it's like, oh, okay, so they definitely do not necessarily have as much of the fighting advantage as we initially thought. Like our survivors could definitely take them for sure. So that, of course, leads to Jin being pissed off because he realizes that they've been lying to him. But then, of course, he requests a gun from Sayid because he's like, look, if we're going to do this, we're going to, well, you know, we're going to do this right, because he shows he does have a little bit of killing experience as well, which also ties into the flashback, which is basically where Sun's dad sends Jin to kill the guy who's been sleeping with Jin. Sun does this. He tries to basically give him a second chance, and the dude ends up killing himself. So
sleeping with Jin, huh? No, you
sleeping
finally,
with Sun.
You finally slipped.
I knew it was gonna happen. I knew it was gonna happen at some point. It was only a matter of when, not if. These names are too similar. But so of course that shows that Jin knows what he's doing with a gun. So they're waiting in ambush. They're waiting and waiting. He tells Sun to go wait on the boat. But of course, the others don't care about them. They want the boat. So what do? They invade the boat. Then Paula Malcolmson tries to talk Sun down, but Sun ends up shooting her and killing her. It's like, oh, the first blood has been drawn, and it's been from our side. But thankfully, Sun is able to get off the boat just in time. Sayid and Jin realize too late that the others have taken the boat. They go, they try shooting at them, but Sun manages to get off the boat and is reunited with Jin in the water. So, yay, happy ending, ? Except for it's like, oh no.
But they lost the boat.
Not only did they lose the boat, but remember, Paula Malcolmson may or may not have been dating Michael Bowen's character. So knowing that she's dead now, Michael Bowen is not going to be happy about that, to say the least. And since we know that he's got this growing ire with Sawyer, that's
not going to end well.
That's not going to end well for them at all. So then we pretty much end the episode with Jack in the cage talking with Ben. Jack is basically like completely defeated. Yeah. He's like lost all hope. It's like, who cares? And then
this is probably the best part of the episode.
Yeah, easily. First of all, we finally get Ben's real name. He's like Benjamin Linus. It's like, oh, finally. He's like, I lived on this island my whole life. And he's telling Jack everything that's happened in the real world. And he's like, Jack's like, you're lying. You don't have access to the real world. He's like, you mean to tell me you can go to and from this island willy-nilly? And then Ben's giving him all these different stats in order to try and prove that the real world is real. He's like, what is it? He's like,
he says that Bush got reelected. Christopher Reeve died. And then the Boston
Red Sox won the World Series. And he's like, and Jack's like, I don't know if that's the moment where Jack is like, oh, you're full of shit. You are absolutely full of shit. There's no way that happened. And then he turns on.
You think Jack would have voted for Bush or he ran against?
I'm trying to think. That's Bush term 2, so he would have been running against. Oh man, who was the Democrat that he was up against? Because Bush Gore was 2000. So 2004.
I'm Googling it.
Yeah, Google it. Yeah, because I was in 2nd grade. That's going back in my memory banks there.
Where the hell is it?
But
is it so?
But some strange
John Kerry.
Oh yeah, John Kerry. That's right. That's the problem, because I remember John Kerry being a bad candidate. I don't know. You know what? Jack seems like an underdog kind of thing. He probably would have voted for John Kerry. But then again, you know what? If I remember correctly, Bush's first term was, who am I kidding? 9/11, war in Iraq. Who am I kidding? Bush Jr. never had a good term. Who am I kidding? Oh, man. That was funny. But yeah, so basically, Ben ends up making him a deal. He's like, look, Jack, if you help me with what I need, then I'll get you home. Then I'll send you home. And he's like, he's like, what do you need help with? He's like, patience, Jack. Patience. And boom, cut to black. More ambiguity. Yay. Oh, man. But that was a good interaction, though. What did you think of that last interaction?
Yeah, I think that was a really kind of heavy moment for Jack, like actually seeing something from the outside world that has happened since he's been on the island. I feel like that's kind of like a Matthew McConaughey in Interstellar, seeing the messages from Murph, like, oh, this has happened while you were here. And then it's another affirmation, yes, to the audience, like, yes, this is real, this is happening. It's not just purgatory or whatever.
Yeah, because there were a lot of moments in the second half of season 2 where they're like, oh, is this real? Are we sure this isn't purgatory? But this confirms, like, no, this is real. Everything that's on the island is happening. So, glad that we were able to get that little moment there. So like I said, not a very long episode, some good action beats, some more action beats forward. But yeah, like I said, next week is the lock episode, so hopefully we'll get some more interesting stuff there. And then after that is the Sawyer episode. And then after that, the 5th episode, which we end the month with. That's where things start to get real with the Echo episode, the cost of living. That's where things really start to heat up. So definitely we'll keep an eye out for that episode, and we'll kind of slog our way through the next week. So stay tuned. In a couple minutes, we're going to be going live with weapons. And in the meantime, stay tuned. We'll be back next week for another episode of Lost. See ya. All right, people, we are back. It is officially the dog days of summer, as they say. But the good thing is that we still... August is always such an interesting month. It is always such an interesting month because you could have, for the most part, just dregs that people mostly forget about, or you could have an iconic moment like this. I have said this on this podcast more times than I can count. I will never forget watching the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie 11 years ago when it came out in August. Yes, it has been 11 years since that movie came out. Little did I know that possibly the movie event of the summer would not be a superhero movie. It would not be any of the movies that it would not be a Formula One movie. It would not be a Mission Impossible movie, the longest Mission Impossible movie made yet. It would instead be a horror movie from the director who was previously in The Whitest Kids You Know. Zach Cregger's latest film entry, Weapons, has been released in theaters. It is his sophomore feature film following up Barbarian, his debut feature from a couple years ago. Like I said, he was a member of The Whitest Kids You Know. And also, it is a script that was so heavily bidded on that Jordan Peele famously fired his management team when they failed to secure the rights to this script. That is how sought after this script was. And now it is out. It is in theaters. And we are going to discuss if it lived up to the hype. Because this movie, despite the massive, overwhelming positive affectations that it has been getting, it is still drawn some criticisms, which we are going to break down on this episode. I'm joined by some familiar faces, some new faces. First up, to my left, right, whichever way, Luke of Luke Reviews. We just did Lost. Luke, happy to have you back on. We're, what's it called? This is just do some opening thoughts on this movie before we get going.
Yeah, it was always towards the top of my most anticipated for the year, just given that it's Zach Cregger who did Barbarian. I really enjoyed Barbarian, so just to see what else he has next. And then you've got the first trailer, and it's like, okay, premise is there, bang, I'm in. That's enough of a premise to get any horror fan in, I think. So, and yeah, I'd say it definitely lived up, and we're gonna try and dissect what the hell it's actually about.
Yeah, exactly. If it's about anything, we shall see. Next up, my good friend Dustin, childhood friend. We just did the Liam Neeson Hall of Fame yesterday, so just give some opening thoughts on this movie before we get going and fully break it down.
I was very looking forward to this. I really liked Barbarian, Zach Cregger's previous film. Very, very much pitched to be the Magnolia of horror movies, and I was just super excited. I mean, I was excited when the cast was first announced, and then as soon as it got that revamp with the strikes and everything, I think it turned out for the better, because I think we're going to have a nice conversation here.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I forgot about the cast revamps as well, how the strikes affected this. Also, the fact that this movie was originally supposed to come out in January of 2026, and they had so much confidence in it that they pushed it up to August of this year, which almost never happens. Like, that's how much confidence they had in the script, which is insane. Next up, first time on the podcast, I have been wanting you on the podcast for a minute, and we finally, literally by the grace of God, it all worked out, because previously you were not going to be on originally because you weren't sure if you were going to be able to see the movie originally. My good friend, Taylor Gwilt. Taylor, happy to have you on the show. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, your various nerdoms, your fandoms that you're into, and your initial thoughts after watching Weapons.
Well, I'm into a lot of things, anime, Dragon Ball Z specifically, Studio Ghibli, all of the things, Marvel, comics, Pretty much anything you can like, except for Dungeons and Dragons. I'm so sorry. Um, but I was pleasantly surprised. I was very excited to go see this movie, and after I heard that it was by the same guy who did Barbarian, I was like, "Oh, okay." And I was not disappointed. I thought it was a pretty good mixture of different things. I liked the casting. I liked the music. So it's probably one of the more solid horror movies I've seen in a long time. I think the last one I saw was Bring Her Back, and I definitely liked this one a lot better than that.
Interesting. Yeah, especially since they don't deal with like similar themes exactly, but like they are
Right.
you can see kind of the connecting strings there.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, I did like Bring Her Back, but I did like this one significantly more. And last
Yeah.
but not least, kind of like a random last minute intro right here. For another kind of sort of a connection through the neighborhood playhouse. My friend Brindley basically hit me up one day and was like, "Hey, this guy needs some help with visa. You want to have him on the podcast?" I'm like, "Sure, if he knows what he's talking about, absolutely." And I'm like, "Ooh, weapons. This will be an interesting litmus test to have you on for." So, Sam Dolman, from England, happy to have you on, dude.
Hiya, nice to meet you. So yeah, no, I'm an actor as well, producer, and love the arts and love movies all the same. And so I didn't go into this movie knowing very much. That's for sure. I actually went in kind of blind. What I do know is I'm a huge fan of Julia Garner. Ozark was one of my programs I've watched 2-3 times over because I think it is acting mastery. And it was a world that I went in and got engulfed in. And when I left the cinema after Weapons, walking out and seeing like the colorful streets of New York City in the summer was kind of like a shock. It took me like a second to readjust to everything. And I was a lot more pleasantly surprised with this film than I thought. And I kind of love how Cregger's comedy background shone throughout this horror movie as well. I think it was very well done. It was very well done.
Yes, could not agree more. And honestly, Sam, I'm actually really glad that you brought up those points specifically because I think you captured both the thought process and the mentality that you needed to have going into this movie, and also the exact same feeling that I had coming out. Because literally coming out of that movie, I was like, "What is reality? Like, what is going on?" Like, I don't remember the last time that I had such a visceral reaction to a movie, which is crazy when you consider that like it's all in the filmmaking. I think that's like the first thing that I really want to start this conversation off with is just how important this is, important the actual filmmaking process is to a movie like this. Because in terms of, it's very interesting because I saw this with my brother. And famously, my brother does not like horror movies. He does not go out of his way to watch them. In fact, and I'm going to quote him exactly here, his exact response coming out of this movie was, "It was stupid because it was supernatural, and supernatural things like that don't happen in real life." Word for word. I'm not making this up. And that just shows the differences between me and him growing up. Dustin can attest. He's known him just as long, almost as long as me. And that, I think, kind of shows, it also ties into kind of one of the points that we will bring up later on in this conversation, which is basically this idea of people's reaction to horror and different kinds of horror, ultimately, where you can get kind of a story where it's like, okay, like Dustin was saying before, this movie was basically pitched as the Magnolia of horror movies, essentially, where it essentially is set amongst the residents of a town in which this horror takes place. The idea of these 17 children that just go randomly missing over the course of the night. And now we're going to find out what happened and what the catalyst for that was by exploring these different perspectives of all of these different people. We start with the Julia Garner character, and then we transition into the Josh Brolin character, who's the father of one of the disappeared kids. Julia Garner was the teacher who all the kids in her class disappeared. Then you have one of the local cops, played by Alden Ehrenreich, and then it transitions into one of the local drug addicts, played by Austin Abrams, before it finally transitions in, and then Benedict Wong, who plays the principal of the school, before it finally transitions into the one kid who was the only kid in the class to have not disappeared, who it is revealed all of this mystery revolves around. So basically what this movie is doing, it is taking a multi-ensemble pronged approach in order to progressively draw us into the horror. And through that, as such, because we're getting this perspective from multiple different characters, we're able to kind of get a more elevated sense of dread as we see each and every one of these characters begin to interact with the horror that is eventually revealed throughout the course of the movie. I won't get into that yet because I don't want to step on Amy Madigan's unbelievable performance. But Luke, we're going to start with you going into this, right? what's it called? As far as this, how would you say that this overall differentiates from other horror movies that you've seen before?
I think it's all in the screenplay. Like the first off, like yes, it's big on atmosphere. It's big on creating the town. It feels like its own little mini world. Like to me, it's like typical American town. Like they're all the same to me. It's like what you see in one horror movie, like the one in Scream or whatever, the one in Halloween. It's like it's typical
specifically
American.
like small town domestic like
Yeah.
suburbia areas.
Exactly, but the way they frame it is like they start after the event, like which I really like. It's like, okay, we're not gonna skip, not gonna spend time like setting it up. We're just gonna start you in the action, and then we just see how these various people are affected by it. Like, you know, Dom, we've been big in the Lost.
Yeah, I was about to say, it helps that we
lately,
literally
so,
just recapped an episode of Lost right before this.
So I think our work there has helped me better appreciate this movie, of how this one thing affects different people and how interconnected it is. Like that's the biggest thing. I was like, whoa, okay, so that's that, and then that person comes in there. It's like you're watching the movie and then you're skipping back, and it's like this whole new information comes up. So I just really enjoyed it. I've completely lost my train of thought, but it was really good.
Kind of like how when you're watching this movie and you're like,
Exactly.
oh man, like what is happening ultimately? So Dustin, go. So you and I talked a lot about ensemble based movies in general. How this movie specifically, it's funny because like I said, this movie's pitch is Magnolia, but we were talking about it yesterday about how this kind of almost has more in common with Pulp Fiction in terms of how it eventually comes around, and also talk a little bit about the actual script process as far as like how this ended up kind of getting rejuvenated by the strikes as well, because you brought that up as well in the opening points.
I don't think the script changed that much, but the casting definitely did. Tom Burke was supposed to be the Alden Ehrenreich. Pedro Pascal was supposed to be Josh Brolin. Oddly enough, Renata Rainsve from Worst Person in the World was supposed to be the Justine character Julia Garner played, and Brian Tyree Henry was supposed to play the Benedict Wong principal character. So I think everyone was recast appropriately, and I think they had a great handle on the tone. I especially Julia Garner, I think, is a much more reasonable choice than Renata Ransva. Through the whole movie, I would just be like, all right, why does she have a broken accent in this whole small town? Like, it just would have been distracting for me. I don't know, you know what I mean? But yeah, everyone just feels like they're part of this community, and it just feels fractured, and every character is well written, just not absolutely well developed. But for the type of movie this is, it definitely puts you in their shoes and definitely gives you the perspectives uh, for all the perspectives, and it's just super satisfying as a fan of non-linear storytelling. And I just thought the way it connected everything it made sense, and it was satisfying. And especially by the time we get to the mystery of like what is actually happening with the Amy Madigan character, who's outstanding. Uh, yeah, this really does turn into a memorable and instantly uh, kind of a instant horror classic, kind of. And I
Yeah.
don't get scared by movies very much, but it did remind me, like, it was pitched as Magnolia meets Hereditary, and it definitely did remind me of Hereditary more than Magnolia in terms of like the supernatural and just how everything just escalates further in the third act. And yeah, I just really, really wasn't let down by this one.
Yeah, agreed. Especially for me, like certain like shots and sequences of like where like they keep the camera from afar, but they have the characters like coming out of like dark hallways and like walking in really wonky, creepy ways, and just like keeping the camera still. And I'm just like, oh man, like just moments where I'm literally on the edge of my seat.
It has
Like,
some similarities to like PTA's camera work for
Yes.
sure, especially like when Austin Abrams is running out of the house,
yeah,
everything like that whole shot. But like, yeah, there's like the climax we were saying is like similar to the Magnolia climax in a way, but I don't know. I just think he really nailed the tone for this, and just he nailed what he was going for. I like that he wasn't as concerned with like the outside commotion of it all, and was really just focused in on this,
Yeah.
answering like, all right, how are we going to get these kids out of here, and what's going to happen at the end? And
Yeah.
I think he answered that question.
Well, and the other thing too that I loved as well is the fact that I was really worried. Like, really, Luke, funnily enough, that we were talking about Lost, I was really worried that it was going to be a whole like, oh, well, what happened to the kids? Is this even about the kids? Is this just going to be about the town moving on past the kids? And there was a version of this movie where it could have gone in that direction, and I am really glad that it did not. But we will get to that at a later point. So Taylor, you mentioned you compared this to another horror movie that came out previously this year. Danny and Michael Philippe's Bring Her Back. So where do you think this? So you mentioned you like this one more. Where do you think this movie worked better in ways that Bring Her Back didn't necessarily work for you?
Well, I'm a big Pulp Fiction person, so I love any nonlinear story like that. So that just chef's kiss. That made me very, very happy. I felt like Bring Her Back was more body horror, and it's body horror isn't always my thing. I liked that this was more supernatural, and I just felt like everything came together a lot better. And I felt that I left the theater when I saw Bring Her Back. I felt that I left with more questions than answers, and not necessarily in a good way. I was just like, oh, okay, like I guess this kind of makes sense, but I don't really know. Whereas with Weapons, I was thinking of all the possible things that could happen next. And I was just going back and thinking of all the little subtle things that I saw. And I don't know. I just Bring Her Back, it was good. It just wasn't for me. This was a more well-rounded movie in my opinion.
You mean you don't like little kids like shoving knives in their mouth? So that's not the
That
kind of
was-
thing that's not your
Yeah,
forte. Okay,
so-
got it. Good to know.
So like there were certain parts of Bring Her Back where I wanted to look away so badly, like in scenes like that. And I actually did look away because I was like, all right, I've had enough. This scene is going on for so long, I can't watch anymore. Whereas in Weapons, there were parts that I wanted to look away because I was so like uncomfortable, and there was so much silence, and I was just dreading what was going to happen. But I didn't look away because I did actually want to see what was going to go on. So I guess I don't like when movies kind of make me look away because they're so gory and so graphic that I'm like, I really don't want to see this anymore. And I think Weapons had a pretty good mixture of a little bit of body horror, but also supernatural, but also possible murder mystery. Like at first I was suspecting that Julia Garner could have been behind it, and I just was more wondering than anything. Whereas with Bring Her Back, I kind of understood what was going on really quick. So I don't know. I liked a lot of the element of mystery. I liked the pacing of Weapons. I liked that it had a delicate balance of all the different elements of horror that I like. So it was just more well-rounded to me.
I like that. It's funny because tying into the multiple character narrative as well, I think that's kind of again where this movie's biggest strength is because you're following it from the perspective of all these other characters as they're slowly being made aware of what the evil is. It creates more of a oh man, I forgot the name of this rule, but it's this rule in screenwriting basically where as soon as the audience figures out what's going on before the characters do it, there's like an unsatisfaction that comes to it. But it's like if you could allow your audience to figure out what's happening in real time with the characters in the movie. And that's this movie's greatest strength because the majority of the characters don't know what the fuck is going on either at all. And they're trying to figure it out as well, but they're all going about it in their own way. And then they're all having like all these different interactions. And like the Alden Ehrenreich, Austin Abrams section in the middle, you're like, okay, we're getting closer, but like what's going on? Like, I will say the movie pretty quickly tells you that Julia Garner is not the one that's behind this. And Dustin, we were also talking about this a little bit yesterday. Like, remind me, it's like the movie doesn't really give you any indication as far as to think that Julia Garner could actually be a suspect, right? Because they basically showed that like, oh, she just likes to get drunk. Okay, so like she's just like
she drinks on when she's off the clock.
Right.
Okay.
But that's it. Like,
right.
Like I think for me the weirdest part where I was like, oh, I don't know, is when she was trying really, really hard to go talk to Alex, and she was like knocking on the door. And it's probably because I take a different perspective because I am a teacher.
Right. Yeah.
So in my head, I'm like, yeah, no, we're crossing some lines now, and just the stuff that the principal said. So one thing I liked about the script is that when the principal is talking to Julia Garner, he kind of plants these seeds like, hey, you've definitely crossed some boundaries before, like, I don't know.
Right.
Yeah,
But they
but
never tell but they never tell you what it is
Right,
the
but they
thing.
never
No,
tell
they
you
do.
that
They
he's
do
not
tell
there
you.
before. And so once we figured out that it wasn't her, I kind of took a deep breath. I was like, okay, I feel better now.
Yeah.
The two
Like, it's not her, I
examples
feel better.
the two examples that they give of her crossing boundaries is hugging a crying boy and lock me up, she goes. And then she drove home a girl who lived like right on her block because she missed the bus.
Yes.
Yeah.
Those are
Absolute
her-
criminal.
those-
Throw her in jail.
those
Throw her in
are
jail.
her- that's why people suspect. And I think it is funny that like no one calls Amy Madigan a witch, but but Josh Brolin paints witch on Julia Garner's car.
Right.
Right,
Almost like
right,
the movie
right.
is intentionally doing that.
Right.
Almost
Yeah,
like the movie is
I like that.
intentionally doing. Yeah, that's cool.
I like
Sam,
that.
yeah, Sam, bringing you into this conversation as well. So
Yeah.
now that we've kind of like busted open the door a little bit, so just give us like some more of like your more in-depth thoughts specifically as far as like where the movie goes. 'Cause you mentioned like the feeling that you had coming out of it, but like as
Yeah.
far as like the specific multiple character strands and us like kind of figuring out the evil in real time with the characters. Just wanted to know your thoughts on that.
So, well, like I said, I want to talk about the comedy a little bit about it, because I think his dark sense of humor is it's not a distraction. I think it was like perfectly injected into like the moments of absurdity in the film, which really truly like kind of lets you relieve the tension a little bit of what is going on, because there is these absurd moments in it that I truly love. And that's what I loved the film, because it reminded me of so many different things. There was parts that made me like genuinely laugh out loud, but then like the film opens and I was like, are we about to go into like a true crime style drama, like about a crisis in a town? And he then kind of just pulls the rug out from underneath you. And that was really, really awesome. And like kind of what you guys were talking about, like the misdirection of who was Julia Garner the person to do this, and like I think that is a very what's the word that I'm saying? It kind of shows you like the horrors of mundane life in a small town in America, and how real that is to somewhere in where we are in the world right now. Because it shows you the like immediate descent of paranoia and blame to a flawed person in society. This woman drinks and she's a teacher, and we are annoyed by this. She's had an affair with a police officer. She must be an evil person who stole these kids. And how quick we are to blame in a society. And I think that actually is kind of one of the scarier parts of the film in itself. That you kind of, I honestly believed that she was innocent from the get-go. And the scary part was how she was being treated throughout that, just because of what was going on. And that was some of the things that really was keeping me so engaged, because I was like, how are we going to prove that Julia Garner is innocent? Like she is getting bullied and treated horribly, and is also choosing to stick around. She's not letting that push her out. And she is actually wanting to find these kids because she does care about them. And they are her students. And I think that was something that was very much pushed throughout the film as well, is that she, even though she may be a bit of a negative person outside of the classroom, in the classroom, these are people she really cares about. The main kid's name is Alex, am I correct?
Yeah, Alex.
Alex. And like, even when he leaves to get the items, like she goes and checks on him, and she's like, hey, you've been really quiet recently. And like, I think it's beautiful that they show her as a human while the rest of the town is criminalizing her and showing her to be this horrible human being, when actually she is just someone with a little bit of a flawed personality.
Yeah, exactly. Couldn't agree more. And especially considering that, like, and you see that, like, I like how they explore, like, the different perspectives as well, like the Josh Brolin character who like is just this suburban dad who just wants to get his son back, and but is going to, but again is being driven to do these horrible, awful things like targeting her, and then eventually like beginning to investigate on his own, realizing, oh, she may not be responsible for this, especially after they get attacked by Benedict Wong. And then Alden Ehrenreich, who is just this cop that she's like having an affair with. And it's like they've known each other for a while, but it's like they never actually go in depth as far as like how they got to know each other. It's like, okay, they're just hooking up. And to the point where his wife, ironically played by June Diane Raphael, who I didn't even recognize at all, ends up like tracking her down and beating her up. But then he ends up getting involved with the Austin Abrams character, who just wants to he just wants the reward money so he can, potentially buy more drugs. Or it's like all of these different like goofy elements of like all these characters who ultimately have kind of nothing to do with the kids. Because it's weird that I will admit the time frame of this movie is a little wonky because they say it's been like 2 weeks, 3 weeks since the kids have disappeared at the beginning. But the way that like it goes about, it almost feels like it's going like the actual events post like the 2 weeks and post like the town hall meeting is only happening over the course of like 2 or 3 days or something like that. So it is interesting how timing and how time frames and chronology are used in this movie as well, kind of breaking it apart, because we see a little bit of stuff leading up to the before the kids. And for me also too, the dead giveaway that Julia Garner is not the one behind this is showing the kids bullying Alex. Like that to me is I'm like, okay, something immediately is going to be revolving around this kid. But then they do that thing where they kind of have him out of the narrative as we're focusing on the other characters. So by the time we bring him back in later on, they're like, oh, okay, so it was about him. We were just kind of distracting you for this first like hour or so until we brought him back. And by then it works. And then we bring in the Amy Madigan character, which let's have that discussion now. I mean, they have the introduction with like these characters are dreaming of this weird clown figure, and I'm like, okay, so that tells us that that's something supernatural. But that's the other thing that I really want to give this movie credit for is the fact that, I mean, the only thing you knew based off the trailer is that 17 kids disappeared, and like you could make an assumption based off of the way that they're running that it's something supernatural, but for the most part, this trailer gives you absolutely nothing to go off of. You have no idea if this is going to be just a regular kidnapping. You have no clue. You really don't. And that's why I really, really have to give the trailer props, because how many trailers have we seen in the last 10 years now that have told us the entire fucking movie in the whole trailer? And it's like, what's the point of even watching this now? And it's just become Hollywood's go-to definitive. And then they wonder why nobody goes to watch their movies. But, this trailer really did a good job of keeping the majority of the plot kind of under wraps. And even so much so that it wasn't until about an hour into the movie that you realize, oh, it's this weird redheaded figure that actually is real. It's not just like this dream figment that's popping up in all these people's imaginations. And it's funny because it's another one of those instances where they never need to explicitly tell you that she is a witch. They just do it entirely visually, which again, I can't remember the last time that I saw that in a movie. Luke, as soon as you see like this insane looking redhead woman pop up on screen, you're immediately like, this is a witch, right?
Yeah, like one of the biggest things with a movie like this, when you have this big mystery, especially again, Lost has like only mysteries. Like you have to trust the movie. Like, okay, it will answer at least the one thing, like where did the kids go? Why did they go there? Like maybe you won't get all the answers, but you'll get some of the answers. So I just had to sit and trust the movie. And then as it went along, you got more and more POVs and that unlocked things. Then finally she shows up, and then you're okay, this is just, she looks like the Chapel Roan thing that they're seeing in their
yeah, honestly,
dreams.
yeah, that's the other thing too. Is I'm like, wait, Chapel Roan, what's going on here?
And then as the movie, like when she visits the Benedict Wong household, that's when like the movie really takes a turn. It's like, okay,
what a weird scene.
Awesome scene. Incredible scene.
What a weird
like that. She asked for a bowl of water.
Yeah.
I also just love the boyfriend's like reaction. There was a point where he just
he's the only normal person. It's like, why are you inviting this woman into our house? Like, what is going on here?
Yeah, and then that begs me the question, after this and Barbarian, like what's happened to Zach Cregger as a child with some old woman that he encountered that has caused him to put 2 scary old women in his movies? Like, I need to know.
Oh man, yeah, because we came to this conclusion basically after 2 straight seasons of Lost recap. We were basically like, wait, every character on this show has a terrible father figure. What happened with David Lindelof and his dad in real life to make him just write every father figure as being an absolute piece of shit? Because that even sort of continues into the leftovers with the Scott Glenn character. Oh man, but I digress. Dustin, all right, let's have it. The Amy Madigan discussion. As soon as she comes on screen, you're immediately like, it's her. Like, it has to be her. Who else could it be?
Oh, for
Mostly because,
sure.
well, I mean, just from a color palette standpoint, too, she has the most color on her figure, more than any other character in this entire movie. So,
And her appearance alone is just like, what the fuck is this person? Like when she walks into Benedict Wong's office and he's like, he has to make sure that he's never met her before. He's like, I'm pretty sure I'd remember if I'd met. Okay, good. I'm not losing my mind. Like I like that little detail. He had a really good line when Julia Garner calls him after she peeks her head into the house for the first time. Like he's like, I'm gonna give you the courtesy of forgetting that this call ever happened. Okay, like I love
that's a good line.
I love that line. Yeah, it was Amy Madigan, man. She comes in as Alex's long lost great aunt. I guess
Right.
she was, allegedly. She was supposed to be his mother's, his mother's sister. So yeah, great aunt. And I guess her mother is dead, so she's like, my mom would want me to take care of my Aunt Gladys, so she's staying with them for mysterious reasons. She assumably has presumably has like cancer and doesn't have much time to live, or so we think.
So we think.
She has this mysterious little tree that she has with her, which we surmise that those are the branches that she uses for each of her spells. And we find out, that she pretty much just knows how to lobotomize people with her spells, and I guess therefore takes their energy so she can get younger. How successful she is at that is debatable, because by the climax, she's telling Alex, "Hey, Alex, pack your shit. We're leaving tomorrow." So like, we don't even know what's even supposed to happen if Julia Garner and Josh Brolin don't come through. What the hell was Alex and Gladys? Where were they going next? Like, you know what I mean? It's just so many weird unanswered questions that are still oddly satisfying by the time we get to the conclusion and everything that happens with her character. But yeah, the movie just has so many interesting, creative, and original ideas, especially with that character and the casting of Amy Madigan herself, who I think she's married to Ed Harris, and I guess she's morphed.
She is.
She's morphed into looking into Ed Harris also, because holy shit! But she was just complete. Like, this is like the best antagonist in a horror movie I've seen in maybe a decade.
Well, because it's one of those things where it's the sweet old woman facade, when really she's just like, it's the classic witch from Hansel and Gretel. And ironically enough, this kind of did give me a lot of vibes of Osgood Perkins' Gretel and Hansel, which came out in 2020. Very similar, not exactly the similar, kind of similar shooting style, but very similar vibes as far as like the creepy old woman who like sort of has the warm veneer front, but in reality is just like trying to eat you and eat your soul in order to, the idea of the old kind of draining the youth in order to like replenish their own sense of youth. But it creates almost like this what's it called, this symbiotic, this vampire-esque relationship where it's like she has to keep draining, she has to keep the energy flow going. And that's ultimately why she tells Alex in the third act, is like, yeah, bring me a little token of each of the members of your classroom, because I think Alex casually mentions that oh yeah, he was being bullied by one of the kids in the class, who of course turns out to be Josh Brolin's kid. I don't know if that was supposed to be like a big twist reveal, but it's like, oh, of course, how could it not be?
And like, this is another thing I want to mention. Like, the movie could have easily made the characters insufferable to be around, because that Josh Brolin character was so obviously supposed to be like a conservative, like man's man who doesn't really give a shit about his son until he like
disappears.
Until he disappears. And the fact that we get that subtle detail of Josh Brolin's kid being a bully, like, yeah, we can see why, because just everything he does, like 90% of the things he does in this movie, he's a prick. He's just a kind of a prick. Even by the end, like, he was under the spell, of course, strangling Julia Garner, but as soon as he just drops her and doesn't say anything and just goes and looks for it, doesn't make sure she's okay.
Yeah, he doesn't care.
Kind of an asshole.
He doesn't care at all, which makes it even more funny given the fact that was originally supposed to be Pedro Pascal playing that part, because that would have been, you want to talk about insufferable and badly miscast. Oh man,
he would have been more whiny in the movie. Like, Josh Brolin's just more like naturally funny.
Yeah, Josh Brolin works better for that type of a part. That's the thing. Because he just in general comes off as kind of the more gruff, masculine man's man than somebody like Pedro Pascal would. Taylor, your thoughts on the use of witchcraft in this movie and the Amy Madigan performance specifically? I mean, like I said, the minute that she comes into this movie, it's like very, very purposefully done as far as the color and aesthetics they use for her outfit.
She made me so uncomfortable, and it was so weird because I was in the movie and I was sitting next to my brother and I was like, hey, she's from Uncle Buck. And
that's right.
I recognized her. I was like, wait, that's Shanice from Uncle Buck, who's just not the same vibe at all. But as soon as I saw her face and her red hair, I was like, yeah, wow, this is different. But she just made me feel so uncomfortable. And the weird part was that the more I think about it, like, if that lady showed up at my door, I'm not letting her in.
Right.
And I don't know if they want the audience to feel differently than the actual characters in the movie, but it seemed like Alex was really the only one who was super duper uncomfortable around her, whereas everybody else was kind of like, yeah.
Benedict Wong seemed freaked out by her.
For the first 5 seconds until he let her into his house.
Right,
no. His husband lets her into the
house. That's right.
You're not getting into my house.
He's just like, we just sat down. What are you doing here? How do you know where I live?
Right.
You know what I mean? It's so weird.
Like, she was just so performative with the old lady thing.
Yeah. She's like, I'm out of breath. I'm going to continue to talk nonstop when I go into your house.
Right. And I was just like, are the characters not seeing what we see? And I like that though.
I think Benedict Wong was. He was like, he's staring at her the whole time. Like,
yeah. And but when the FBI agents were in the house, I'm like, no way y'all can't see that she's being weird. Like, I'm so uncomfortable watching her, and I'm not even there. I wouldn't want to be around her. The scene where she pops out at I'm just gonna call him the crackhead. When she pops out at him, it definitely reminded me of some scenes from Stephen King's It, the original. Yeah. Like Pennywise kind of popping out randomly in certain places, and just that, like is she in his head, or is she like actually out here? Like, was she really on top of that ceiling, or was she just deep in their thoughts already? Like, I'm not gonna lie, I went to bed and I was afraid to look up at my ceiling. I was like, I don't want her to pop out at me. But the thing that about witchcraft, and I'm not a witch, but when
I have to put the PSA there beforehand in order to emphasize that.
Really not. I'm not. When you think like witchcraft, witches are always in a coven. There's never usually just one. So when she was talking about, okay, let's go, we're gonna leave, maybe she was going to another sister's house where Alex ends up in the end. And when the narrator mentions that Alex ended up with another aunt, I was like, oh shoot, is he with another witch? Because witches are always in a coven usually. There's never just one. So I don't know.
Equal potential.
That might just be me reaching, but
no, like the little girl makes it a point to say, like, I heard she was a very nice lady. So I don't think there's supposed to be like any hint of oh, Alex can't escape the fucking witches.
I know. I was like, I really hope not. I hope he is with.
No, I think he's all right.
But
yeah. Fingers crossed. That kid deserves a break.
He went through enough.
Yeah, for real.
I know. I think that was the other thing was when she was like making him do things and feeding his parents, I just felt so bad for that kid. And again, it's partially because I'm a teacher and I just don't like to see kids suffer like that. But then to see him go to school every day and to do his schoolwork and then come home to that creepy bastard, no way could it be me. I would have. Oh. No.
If anything, that's what makes the third act even more satisfying, though, because you see that, like, no, how smart this kid is. Like, as young as this kid is, this kid knows this is wrong. He knows that what's going on is effed up. And at the end of the day, he is the one that saves everybody at the end of the day, which is what makes that third act so satisfying, is the one character who was able to kind of, see everything. The only character that was able to see everything that was going on as it was happening. The only character that was kind of able to, he did what he had to do in certain instances. Again, not saying that all of his actions are justified, considering that he basically, sacrificed all the kids to basically his weird witch aunt. But at the end of the day, he is the one who was able to take the hair, wrap it around the stick, undo the spell, redirect the kids, which, again, that brings us into, again, one of the all-time greatest third act twists, reveals, climaxes that I've seen. Definitely this year. Still got to figure out if it's of all time. Sam, so as far as you were talking about, the shifts in tone and how this movie was able to so seamlessly transition between moments that were really funny and moments that were really creepy and awkward. That third act, when Alex is able to figure it out and save everybody, when Josh Garland's got Julie Garner in a headlock, and all of a sudden he redirects the kids who have been in the basement the entire time, the whole 2 weeks, and everybody was trying to figure it out. They were just in the creepy Amy Madigan witch's basement, and all of a sudden they go nuts and are chasing her throughout the town to the point where they're literally just breaking through doors and windows like nothing can stop them. Like, just walk me through your thoughts when that happened.
I was just laughing out loud. Honestly, like, the stupidity of it is what made it hilarious and also made it brilliant. And like the way they kill her at the end as well is like brutalistic. Like it is horrible, but it's like also these kids wouldn't know how to kill someone. They don't know to strangle someone. So what do? They just rip and rip and rip and rip. And I think, like, going back to her character as well, and we've said a lot about her, but like she is so in control. Like her character is like a masterclass in like psychological manipulation. And I love how she preys on Alex's loneliness, but also she kind of creates this like perverse kindness to him, calling him like a partner and bringing him into the secrets that and making him feel special and important, when in reality she's like simply using him as a tool. But that is the mistake that she clicks. As soon as he snaps that branch, she notices it, and that is when you see that she's like been played at her own game, and suddenly all of her power is lost within a second, and she knows it. And I love that twist. And just her face, and she's like, oh shit, and just runs is hilarious. Like she has this power. She is this godlike character for a while, and then suddenly complete change.
Yeah.
And I think that brings in this great comedy. And as we've spoken about, like he did a lot of sketch comedy, and so a lot of sketch comedy is the sudden twist into something hilarious and playing with that. And I think that was really done. And there's the one bit where you're on the other side of the street and you see all of the kids just slowly one by one, but it's pretty silent going past. Like you see her 5 seconds and then like each of the kids, and it's hilarious.
Yeah, it literally is like a scene from like a Mad TV sketch where it's like, or like a Curb Your Enthusiasm episode where it's like you just see the one person coming over the hill and then it's just like followed by like the horde of like or like something from like Hundreds of Beavers, something like that. It's hilarious ultimately.
Yeah, exactly. And Monty Python, like
exactly.
Yeah. It's
all those sketch comedy groups, and it's just it's so like it's one of those instances where you're kind of mad that you didn't figure it out yourself, because you're like, oh well, like where else could this have gone? You know, like as soon as Alex figures out, he's gonna like set everything against her, and that's kind of ultimately the only way that the magic is gonna be undone, because everything kind of goes back to her ultimately. You know, unfortunately they've already killed poor Alden and Austin Abrams at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
Real quick. Can anyone use the magic, or was Alex a witch too? I think anyone can use the magic.
I'm pretty sure anybody can use it,
because I think the movie was smart about being establishing how she used the magic in front of him and how he was paying attention to that from the beginning. So like I think it was smart to let him do that by the end. I think anybody could use it. That
was the other thing as well also, is that like the movie was so smart in terms of how it presented the magic visually, because I said this to almost every single I'm pretty sure I said this to almost every one of you guys. I definitely said this to anybody who I was talking to about the movie, which was that in a worse movie, in a worse version of this movie, almost any other director would have taken the 20 minutes once the reveal, once she comes into the movie, to sit down and be like, okay, this is her origin. This is how the magic is done, you know, and basically like go through like a step-by-step exposition process. And the fact that this movie did not do that at all. Exactly. And that's all we needed. All we needed was to see her take the hair, wrap it around the stick, dip it in the water and break it. And we're like, okay, that's how the magic is done. That's how she is able to like establish this control over people. And I mean, the fact of how it's visually set up at the beginning, when we see like who we assume is the mother figure, who's one of the first people that's under her spell, like wander out of the house in that horrifying shot that I'm just like, okay, what the fuck is going on here? And she just comes over and it's like you see Julie Garner asleep in the car and you assume like the worst is gonna happen, and then you just see the hand come into frame with the scissors, snip the hair, and then boom, cut to Josh Brolin. I'm like, oh, that is good filmmaking right there. That is fucking great.
And
great filmmaking.
There was a pentagram in the, or I think that's what you call it, like in the logo of when it says weapons in the beginning. Like,
yes, with the upside down triangle. Yes.
So there was like an immediate hint of just like, ooh, might be some witchcraft.
But again, the fact that the movie does it visually and doesn't take the moment to like explicitly state to you, no, this is witchcraft.
Like, it's very refreshing. Yeah.
Yes, it makes it feel. It's what every script should do, if you ask me. But it's the fact that because it's Hollywood and because they have no faith in their audience and because they like to treat their audiences like idiots, this is why the majority of scripts and horror movies that we get are bad.
It's
so
the idea of showing, not telling.
Exactly. That infamous age-old rule that you think would be commonsensical, but yet nobody in Hollywood likes to do. So, like I said, we're getting down to the wire here, Luke. I know you got somewhere to be in about 15 minutes, but so just going around your thoughts. One final thought on this movie as we go into before we break down our final thoughts and star ratings. The reactions that this movie has been getting ultimately is one of the more interesting ones, because obviously I've noticed that amongst the cinephile community this has been very well received, but I have been seeing some detractions from there. Famously, like I said, my brother, who is not really a fan of this movie, and I just wanted you guys to potentially address any possible criticisms that you may think of, because in terms of like, oh, the multi-strand narrative, oh, it could be hard to figure out what's going on, oh, it's unnecessarily, like I said, minor things that we all have said, oh, no, this is these movies' strengths, not weaknesses. But I wanted to get your guys' thoughts in general as far as the different kinds of reaction that this may be across different audiences. Because as we have all come to become accustomed to, Gen Z in general, outside of the cinephile community, has vastly different reactions to things that we conventionally find good. So, Luke, I wanted to start with you on that as far as addressing any potential criticism that this movie get.
I think you could probably find like a plot hole or two, but none so major as they would ruin the movie. Like the one that I would point to is like, oh, she didn't notice all the name tags were gone off the little cubbies. Like, but that's like such a minor thing. I'm like, okay, whatever. The movie
small enough not to notice, I would say.
Yeah, there's enough effort put into interweaving these like 5 or 6 characters, however many it was, and creating the atmosphere and balancing the serious and the unserious, because like there's the scene where Josh Brolin is punching the crackhead like repeatedly and he keeps getting back up.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was great.
It's like, yeah, it's like why wouldn't you do that? It creates this sort of levity in this otherwise dire moment. And as we said, like the chase is one of the most metal things I've seen in a horror movie ever, probably. So yeah, like I've said this year, general audiences, they may fuel the movie industry, but also they're also very bad for it because they keep going to Disney live action remakes and things like this. So I think generally this will be received positively, but I can see why some people might not. Maybe the multi character thing, like interweaving, doesn't work for them. The hopping between timelines thing, but I think as the cinephile community, we can definitely appreciate the effort into this.
For sure. Dustin, you're addressing any potential plot holes / criticisms that this movie may get.
I don't really understand the criticisms of this being not good. That's what I'm confused about. Like, yeah, you could accuse this movie of having plot holes, and me specifically, my issue with the movie is like I would have liked a tiny bit more character development. Just a little bit more. Just a little bit more meat. I loved Austin Abrams in this. He was fantastic in this movie, and he's been somebody who's been progressively impressing me over the years, and like I think he's becoming one of the better actors of his generation. So yeah, I do like how he didn't make this character a complete scumbag. Like he did like actually have some empathy. Was he just going to use the money just for drugs? I don't know. I think Cregger put some breadcrumbs down. He owed his mother money, you know what I mean? Like, so maybe he could have paid. Like, I don't know. And he wanted to like tell the officer about the kids like that much. Like, I know most of it was for the reward, but it just would have been a little bit nice to know what happened with him and Julia Garner too. Like, I feel like she was like one of the most important characters in the movie, even though the mystery wasn't her fault. But but I would have liked like another like cherry on top of the narration about her is like, and Justine went back to teaching, but no, we didn't get any detail about it. All we know is that the kids, some of the kids talk again, and was the other one? Oh, and his parents, are in an institution, and that he's living with a nice aunt now. So yeah, just minor plot holes. I think Alden Ehrenreich's character being the only like the truly like the most like despicable person in the movie besides the evil witch was the most calculated and like modern Gen Z thing about the movie. Like, of course, the straight white male cop is the douchiest character and worst person in the movie because he's the one that causes all of his own problems. And especially with the Julia Garner character, it's like he flat out lies to her, to start an affair with her again, and then Julia Garner gets the punishment for it. You know what I mean? I mean, he got the ultimate punishment.
Yeah. I was about to say, you want to talk about suffering the consequences,
but he didn't get the. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's just little character flaws like that. But other than that, I really enjoyed the shit out of this movie, and I love the confidence that wasn't obnoxious at all. Because a lot of filmmakers, confuse, obnoxiousness with confidence, and I don't think it's the same thing. And Cregger is very, very smart about his decisions about this film, and for Barbarian as well, for the most part. I really enjoyed that movie as well. So yeah, he's 2 for 2 in the horror genre. I mean, he made Miss March one of the worst comedies of all time. But I think it's been more than a while. It's been 16 years since that movie. So I think all is forgiven on that one with 2 instant horror classics, modern classics. I would say this is fantastic. Some people are probably going to have a problem with the abruptness of the ending itself, but I don't know. It's been growing on me. This movie's been growing on me.
Yeah, definitely. I shot Zach Cregger up to like my number 3 millennial filmmaker behind Ryan Coogler and Robert Eggers. So there's like after this movie alone. So there's that. Taylor, addressing any potential plot holes, flaws, criticisms with the movie, kind of transitioning as well into overall final thoughts.
I would say like I enjoyed the comedy. Some people might not. Like I think there are some horror fans that the movie just needs to straight up be horror and there's no place for comedy here. So I think some people might say that the comedic parts ruined it. But even that's kind of a reach. It's hard to pick out any like immediate big flaws, but I would say just kind of like everybody else said, maybe a little bit more character development. I did think the ending was abrupt, but I'm not mad about it because I think what the goal of them kind of just focusing on the kids at the end is like at the end of the day this movie was supposed to be about finding the kids, and we learned more about the adults, and a lot of it became about the adults, but in reality there were still 17 missing children. Like I feel like it kind of brought everything back to okay,
the mystery
be focused on like there were 17 missing children. So I'm hoping that it was purposeful and not just like leaving out what happened to Julia Garner, because I did want to know, like, did she go back to teaching? What happened to her? But again, at the end of the day, like we care more about like I think you're supposed to care more about the kids, but I mean, I cared about her.
Yeah, right.
I cared about her.
Same. I thought the humor was incorporated well into the movie, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, I thought it was like more natural, like a Safdie's movie incorporates humor where it doesn't feel forced. It actually feels like this makes sense with what's going on in the movie. Of course, people would react like that. And yeah, Josh Brolin going, "What the fuck?" Like that is funny. Like that is naturally funny.
It was great. Just like natural human reactions.
And when he's punching Austin Abrams, like you guys were saying, like that reactionary kind of
so good
humor and acting was very spot on.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
It was way better than Eddington. It wasn't focused on being like a social statement. It was just trying to be a good old fashioned story. I love my stories.
Yep.
And this had plenty of stories in it, and it was just entertaining, and it wasn't about a message or like a supposed message. It was just good character writing, good stuff, good genre work, great direction.
Yes.
Great score. He did the score as well. The score was fantastic. Minimalist at points, and then it really hits you over the head sometimes in the best way.
Yeah, could not agree more. All right, Sam, bringing it to you. Final overall thoughts, wrap up points, any potential flaws, criticisms at all before we get out of here.
So maybe this is like a too much of a critique or pulling it apart too easily. I do think that you could argue, and this isn't necessarily fully my point, this is just me like thinking about what could be a criticism, is that like the slight cop out in the fact that we start out and we are dealing with this like complex psychological drama about like human nature, and then we just switch to the like straightforward good versus evil. Like the sudden appearance of the witch kind of just lets us forget about any of the town's problems, and like slightly undermines the themes of like community decay and blame that was so like effectively built up, and then it then just kind of ends. And like, while it's kind of cathartic, it's also a little bit too neat, kind of like what you were saying. Like, I want to know what happens to Julia Garner's character. Do people still blame Julia Garner because not everyone knows about what happened with this witch? Like,
Right.
the end was just slightly too clean, that it was just like, and everything's resolved, the witch is dead. But also I don't know what I would have done differently, and I also really, really enjoyed the film. So it's like, that is such a like
Right.
a dig into it of what could possibly be a critique, rather than hey, this was terrible, you should have done this differently. Like, I just would love more of a like realistic sense of the consequences of an event like this that happens in a town.
Right. Yeah. In terms of this feels a lot bigger in the beginning, and then as it progresses and goes on, it kind of like gets smaller. Okay, I see where you're coming from with that. Yeah, I still think, and I'm gonna end it with this. I still think like my funniest bit is bringing it back to what my brother said, as far as I'm like, and this is how I know he was full of shit. He was like, oh, as soon as he's like, oh, I figured out that it was something supernatural. I'm like, so you knew it was a witch? Like, you knew exactly what was gonna happen? Like, you're like, well, no. I'm like, okay, so you're full of shit. So don't say that you knew what was gonna happen then if you didn't know. Just dumb stuff like that. Oh man, I wanted to thank all of you guys for coming on. This is an excellent discussion. This is really, this proves that, like, yeah, this is definitely the movie of the year. So I'm just gonna go around real quick. I'm gonna have you guys give your overall final thoughts, star ratings out of 5 out of 10, whatever you end up, whatever you so choose, and then any social media areas that you would like to plug yourself in, where people can follow you on the interwebs. Luke, we're gonna start with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Not quite 5-star for me, but very high 4.5-star, and it just edged Sinners for my movie of the year so far. Because Sinners was great, but it had a lot of good things. Like, absolutely no fault against Sinners, but it's kind of like, but this is like something different. I haven't seen anything quite like this before. I haven't seen Magnolia. Like, that's a big thing, I guess. But yeah, absolutely lived up to the hype. Like I told people on my story, just trust the movie and enjoy the ride, because it will give you the answers. Like, but not every answer. But no one, you shouldn't get every answer. It's that Stephen Kingness of over explaining yourself. So you have to draw that balance. And I have to go. Thank you all for joining us. Good to meet you all. Luke reviews on YouTube, but mostly Talkin Lost on here. All right.
All right. See you, Luke. Good having you on. What's it called? All right, going on to Dustin. Final thoughts, star ratings out of 5 out of 10, and where the good people can follow you on the interwebs.
4.5 out of 5, 9 out of 10, strong 9 out of 10, 9 out of 10. This and Twinless are the best films I've seen this year. Twinless comes out next month. I suggest all of you seeing that. Features Dylan O'Brien's best performance. Also directed by a newcomer, James Sweeney. This is his second film. These are the only 2 must-see original films I've seen this year. Truly original. I've seen stuff like Sinners before, From Dusk Till Dawn. So, yeah, I had a really good time with Sinners, but this was truly original. And and Zach Cregger has said himself, that this wasn't supposed to be that political. It was just supposed to be a cool, crazy movie. And I just think the AR-15 was supposed to be like a cool visual. So yeah, I just had fun with it. It was the more I'm sitting with it, the more satisfied I am with it, and I can't wait to revisit it more. It's not as mind blowing as something like The Cabin in the Woods for me when I first saw that in theaters, but it's as close as you can get with a horror thriller crime anthology kind of movie. And I think this is like the Pulp Fiction of horror, even though Pulp Fiction being my favorite movie, it's not as great as that, but it's a breath of fresh air, like I told you when I saw this movie.
Yes, could not agree more with all of that. And then where can the good people follow you on the interwebs?
YouTube.com, Mr. G Movie Reviews, and Dustin Mason on Letterboxd.
All right. Taylor, your final thoughts, star rating out of 5 out of 10, and any possible spots where the good people can follow you on the interwebs.
I'm gonna have to agree with Dustin. I was thinking 4.5 out of 5 and probably a 9 out of 10. Solid horror movie, probably one that I will go back and rewatch, and I've definitely recommended it to a lot of people. Again, as a Pulp Fiction fan, I really appreciate it. I have not watched Sinners yet, but I like Dusk Till Dawn, so I'll probably give it a watch, especially now that it's on HBO Max. I have Instagram, Taylor Gwilt, just my name. That's about it.
All right. Sounds good. And Sam, first time of the podcast, you absolutely killed it. Final thoughts, star ratings out of 5 out of 10, whatever you do, and where the good people can follow you on the interwebs.
Yeah, I may be again a little bit more critical. I think I'm going to go for like a 4 out of 5. Sorry. I did really enjoy the film. But it isn't like my favorite. Actually, funny enough, Cabin in the Woods is one of my favorite horror movies. I absolutely adore that film. Again, subtle things of comedy in it, such great like massacre scenes, like blood, gore, every kind of thing you can imagine. And so yeah, a 4 out of 5. But thoroughly enjoyed the film. I think it had great things to pick apart, talk about, and think about with it as well. And for that reason, that's why it's still a very high score out of 5. And you can follow me at Samuel B. Dolman on Instagram.
All right, sounds good. You guys can follow me with everything. Oh yeah, my final thoughts, start ratings. Yeah, I give this movie 5 out of 5. For the simple fact that it was, like I said, it was truly unlike anything that I've seen so far this year, and just in general the last couple of years. Even my favorite movies the last couple of years, Dune is an adaptation, Batman is an adaptation, Oppenheimer is based on a book, it's a biopic. Like, so this is like the first thing that I've seen so far, really this decade, that truly, truly feels original and unlike anything that I've ever seen. Like you were saying, Dustin, the Pulp Fiction of horror. The fact that, like, as much as I love Sinners is very much from Dusk Till Dawn coded. So that was already very much like a movie that we'd seen before. I have truly never seen anything like this, nor had an experience like this in a theater so far this decade, which is why this is a 5 out of 5 for me. And you guys can go follow me with everything going on at Movie Nerd Reviews across all platforms, at Official Talkin TV Podcast across all platforms. Be sure to keep tuning in every week for more recaps of Lost and for more fun stuff that we have planned for the month of August before we get into our fall movie season. From myself, from Luke, from Dustin, from Taylor, from Sam. 12 seasons of a short film, and watch more fucking movies. We'll see you guys next time.